Imagine this, a routine attempt to stop a car. Just, a regular stop. And then, in a flash, it escalates into a fatal shooting. It leaves a community just reeling, and you have these completely divided stories about what happened. This isn't hypothetical, it's what we're diving into today. We're looking closely at a really tragic incident in Franklin Park, Illinois. An Immigration and Customs Enforcement Operation, ICE, turned deadly. Silverio Vargas Gonzalez was fatally shot.
Right. And our mission today, like always, is to sort of navigate these difficult waters with you. We're working from detailed excerpts from an ABC7 Chicago YouTube video transcript. So that's our main source material. And this gives us a few different angles, right? You've got the official statements, like from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, but then there's the really emotional side from the victim's family. And, of course, the reactions from community advocates, politicians. It's a lot. So we're going to try and unpack all these viewpoints, look at the sequence of events as they were reported, just lay out the facts as presented in our sources, without taking sides, obviously, just so you can understand the complexity of it all.
Yeah, it's definitely not just another news report. It feels like a real collision point. Personal lives, law enforcement rules, and this huge community outcry. If you follow anything about immigration enforcement or just the dynamics between police and communities, well, this Franklin Park incident, it really hits home. It's kind of a snapshot of those bigger tensions we see playing out all over. Okay, so let's get into it. Maybe start with setting the scene. What do we know from the official side about what actually triggered the shooting in Franklin Park?
Okay, so the official story from ICE, it describes an operation where agents were trying to stop a specific man's car. They identify him as Silverio Vargas Gonzalez. And the key detail in their account is that they call him an undocumented immigrant with a criminal history, specifically reckless driving. So that kind of sets the stage for why they were interacting with him from their perspective. And just for context, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're the federal agency that handles immigration laws inside the U.S. Their operations can be anything from targeting specific people with deportation orders to, well, bigger enforcement actions. In this case, it involved trying to stop his car.
Okay, so an attempted stop, part of an ICE operation. But then, according to the agency, things went sideways pretty fast.
Wow.
What did they say happened next that led to the shooting?
Well, according to ICE, the situation escalated because, they allege, Vargas Gonzalez resisted arrest. Their statement says he actually hit one of the officers with his car while trying to drive away. And that act, hitting the officer while fleeing, that's what they say prompted the use of force.
And the immediate result, from ICE's viewpoint, after that alleged action.
The agency says the officer then fired shots. Vargas Gonzalez was hit. And tragically, he died later at the hospital from those injuries. So the sequence they lay out is resistance, assault on an officer, and then the officer responding to that immediate threat.
Right. And DHS, the department over ICE, they put out a statement pretty quickly about the officer's actions. What was the gist of that? Supporting their agent?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
The DHS statement was clear. It said, let me get the quote right. "We are praying for the speedy recovery of our law enforcement officer. He followed his training, used appropriate force, and properly enforced the law to protect the public and law enforcement." So, yeah, basically saying the officer did everything by the book, acted appropriately given the situation they described.
And they also mentioned something about the officer involved, didn't they? About his condition.
Yes, they did. Authorities stated that the ICE agent who fired the shots actually sustained multiple injuries during the whole encounter, which, adds weight to their narrative that the officer was facing a dangerous situation and the force was a direct response to that threat. So if you piece together just the official accounts, you get this picture of law enforcement procedure, a perceived threat, resistance, alleged assault, and then a justified use of force.
Okay, that's the official narrative. Clear sequence, clear justification from their side. But, and this is a big but, the story gets way more complicated when you hear from Silverio Vargas Gonzalez's family. They paint a really, really different picture. It's a sharp contrast, isn't it?
It really is. The family's description focuses entirely on him as a person, in their lives. His girlfriend, his stepdaughter, they describe him as a 38-year-old father, 3 kids from Mexico. They mentioned he worked at a restaurant in Portage Park, and importantly, that he'd been living in the U.S. for over 20 years. Think about that. More than 2 decades. That detail about him being here so long, building a life, it really shapes their view of who he was.
And his girlfriend, speaking through her daughter who translated, she gave a sense of his personality, too.
Yeah, she called him a calm guy. She emphasized that he respected people and he doesn't get into problems with anyone. So you hear those words, and it creates this image of someone peaceful, family-focused. which is, fundamentally different from the official description we just talked about. It's like two different identities being presented, one defined by legal status and a past driving offense, the other by his everyday conduct and relationships.
And the family's overall feeling about his death, how did they put that?
It was just incredibly sad and direct. The quote was, "I will miss him, and I hope he's resting well." It's powerful, isn't it? It just grounds this whole complex thing in a very real human loss. It reminds you that behind the headlines and the official statements, there are people just devastated, trying to make sense of it all. It really contrasts with the, procedural language from the agencies.
So you've got these two starkly different views right next to each other. On one side, undocumented immigrant, criminal history, reckless driving. On the other, calm guy, father of three, worked here, respected people, here for over 20 years. It really shows how one person can be seen so differently, depending on who's looking and why. For law enforcement, maybe the record, the status, that's primary. For family, it's the person they lived with every day. It's not just about facts disagreeing, it's like a clash of basic human perspectives. And that totally shapes how people see the whole event and whether they think the force used was justified.
Exactly. And it wasn't just talk either. The incident itself, or parts of it, were apparently caught on video, which, as you can imagine, added another layer.
Yeah.
ABC 7 got hold of some video. They said it was too graphic to show everything, but it reportedly showed the moment officers pulled the man from his crashed car. This was near Grand and Elder Lane.
Okay, can you give us a sense of what was reportedly in that video without being overly graphic, but just so we understand its impact?
Sure. The report said the video showed Vargas Gonzalez with a hold on his head and bleeding. But it also, importantly, showed both men trying to help and cover with the bandage his neck. The officers trying to provide aid. So that detail, officers giving aid after the shooting, it complicates things, doesn't it? It's not a simple narrative.
Yeah.
And just the existence of this video, even parts of it being described, that becomes a really critical piece in how the public is processing this.
Yeah, you can absolutely imagine a fatal shooting, these conflicting stories, and then video evidence. It's no surprise it sparked immediate outrage. You mentioned advocates gathering, taking a defiant stance in Franklin Park. What does that kind of immediate community reaction usually signal?
Well, that strong, immediate response often points to some deep-seated tensions, like a lack of trust, maybe. These gatherings aren't just about the one incident. They often become focal points for bigger worries about how immigration enforcement works, about use of force, about potential bias. That defiant stance suggests people weren't buying the official story right away. They wanted answers, accountability, something more than the initial statements. It suggests that for many people there, this incident felt like part of a larger troubling pattern, especially concerning immigrant communities.
And it didn't just stay local. Politicians got involved pretty quickly too, right? Some fairly prominent figures weighed in.
Oh yeah, definitely. The political reaction was significant. Congressman Chuy Garcia, he represents that area, Illinois' 4th District. He went right to the scene. And he made a really strong statement. He said, without a doubt, there's massive racial ethnic profiling that's taking place, and that's shameful. And then he added, it should not be a deadly consequence to have a traffic violation. So, Congressman Garcia bringing up racial ethnic profiling, that's a serious charge. It's the idea that someone's targeted based on race or ethnicity, not specific evidence. It's a huge concern in immigration debates, and he tied it directly to this shooting.
Wow. Okay, and he wasn't the only one. The governor also commented.
That's right. Governor J.B. Pritzker called the whole encounter troubling. He specifically said that the people of Illinois deserve to know what happened, which is basically a call for transparency, a full investigation. It shows that this wasn't just seen as a local issue, it resonated at the state level, reflecting that public concern. The fact both of them spoke out really underlines the gravity of it.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together for you, the listener. What does it all mean when you're trying to make sense of this? You have this one event, but the basic story of what happened, who the man was, why force was used, it's seen through completely different eyes. You have the official version, law enforcement procedures, legal status, resistance, appropriate force, and then you have the family and community perspective, a personal tragedy, questions about necessity, serious concerns about profiling and enforcement tactics in general.
It's really striking, isn't it, how details like reckless driving versus a calm guy, a father, how those labels shape everything. Public perception, the demands for answers, and if you zoom out, connect it to the bigger picture. It just highlights this massive challenge we have in understanding justice and truth when viewpoints are so personal, so emotional, and also shaped by institutions with their own goals. It's a really clear example of how one single event can be interpreted in ways that aren't just different, but almost opposite, depending on who you are and what your experience is.
Yeah. So this deep dive into what happened in Franklin Park, it really leaves us with a big question, maybe for you to think about. When you have situations like this, where the official story, the personal accounts, even video evidence seem to clash so dramatically, how do we as a society figure out what really happened? How do you arrive at some kind of nuanced understanding? And maybe most importantly, how do you make sure all the voices actually get heard in that search for justice? It's a tough one. It really demands critical thinking and maybe being open to the idea that there might be multiple truths playing out at the same time, even if they seem contradictory.